Hi, John. My name is Margaret Ennis. I'm the General Curator at the Maryland Zoo.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to the Rossifari podcast. All right, y'all, so we've got something really exciting today. Earlier this week, the Maryland Zoo officially opened its brand new red panda habitat. And I've known about this for years now that it was coming, and I have been so eagerly excited about this and eagerly awaiting this, and it's finally here. And so, of course, I immediately headed down to Maryland and to Baltimore to do this. And in the process, of course, I reached out to the zoo, and my buddy Mike, who runs the PR there and is also a drummer, which is really cool. He hooked it up. And so I was able to go down there and do an interview and check out the habitat and the behind the scenes area and just all of the things. And y'all, it is special. It is a really amazing habitat. I took a lot of photos. I'm going to post a lot of stuff online and kind of help you experience the habitat as well. One of the things that I actually forgot to ask about in the interview, but that I want to point out to y'all, is that the signage at this habitat is incredible. It describes some very complex panda things, like the fact that they are carnivores that aren't really carnivores, in a way that I've never quite seen it explained before. They did an incredible job, and I was snapping photos of the signage as though it was each sign was its own cute little red panda that I was taking pictures of. Oh, and the red pandas there? Yeah, they're adorable, and you're going to learn about them in this episode. So before we get to that, a couple of quick reminders. The new one, of course, is that there is a Rossifari Discord now where you can chat with other members of the community about these interview episodes, about zoo news. We talk about just zoo visits, pets, all kinds of stuff. Occasionally someone makes a joke about tree kangaroos and I miss the joke because I'm too excited to share facts about tree kangaroos, normal stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, join us on the Discord. And of course, there's also, the standard stuff. Follow the pod, hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Follow along on the socials at Rossifari everywhere except for TikTok, at Rossifari Pod. And hey, if you'd like to support the work that I'm doing, and help me with, traveling to get to these places and bring you these interviews, you can become a patron for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. So with all of that said, I am so excited to bring you what is truly one of my favorite interviews that I have ever done. Margaret is incredible, and I can't wait to share her thoughts about the pandas and her life and all the things with y'all. So let's get to it, shall we? All right. Very cool. Welcome to the podcast. When we first met today and I heard your accent, I already knew that you were, in fact, a Baltimore native, lived here your whole life, grew up here, right? Am I close?
You're close, but not quite right. I've probably lived in Baltimore for longer than some of our keeper staff have, but I was born in Cape Town, South Africa, and that's where I grew up.
Very cool. That's awesome. I want to talk about that and all of your journey here, but that's not what we're here to talk about first today. So I always try to get to zoos when they have new habitats opening and exciting things, but never more so than when it's red pandas. And the Maryland Zoo has a red panda habitat now. And I want to discuss everything about this because the first thing, right off the bat, before we talk about the pandas, the habitat, any of that, is that the Maryland Zoo is known for having North America and Africa. And I I guess I don't know everything about red pandas, but my understanding is that they are not in those places. So why do we have red pandas here? I'm not complaining, but why?
There is a long backstory to how the red pandas ended up here. But as we are revitalizing the main valley and bringing in new habitats, my hope is that we can create an Asian section of the zoo in the upper main valley, because the next exhibit that we are going to be opening in this area is going to be a gibbon exhibit.
Nice. That's very exciting.
So there is a plan, and red pandas is part of that plan. But when we first did our master planning back, I believe in 2020, we had not talked about red pandas. Gibbon was the main conversation that we were having at that time. The animal team discussed bringing red pandas in and perhaps putting them in an existing exhibit that we could make some renovations to. But when Kirby, our director, heard about this plan, he said, you know what, if we're going to get red pandas, they deserve to be front and center. And so they were incorporated into our master plan at that point. And the decision was made that they would be the first new exhibit that would open in this revitalized main valley.
Good life choices. I like it.
I think so too. Nobody is disappointed.
That's awesome. And I'm really impressed that you hear so often about the higher ups at zoos worrying about the money first or whatever. So for Kirby to be like, we're going to actually make this a big deal and feature the species, I think is fantastic. Yeah, it's very cool.
I have to give a shout out to our executive team and our trustees, and most of all to Kirby. He is incredibly supportive of the animal team and animal welfare, and he understands that that is always going to be the number one priority. We want guests to have a fantastic time, and we want coming to the zoo to be a good experience for everyone. But what he really understands is that locking animals out on exhibit and forcing them to be in the public eye is not the right way to do it, and that giving animals choice and control is important. And so he supports us across the board with our planning.
That's awesome. That is really good to hear. I love that. That's very cool. So one of the most interesting things I think about this new habitat setup is the contrast. And y'all kept the contrast, which I think is brave in this day and age. And what I mean by that for those listening is that you guys have, we don't really use the word cage anymore in zoos, but you guys have a cage from when, I guess, the zoo first opened 150 years ago or whatever, that is right next to the panda habitat. And it is not inhabited by any animals, nor should it be. But it is such a beautiful, stark contrast of where zoos have come and where the Maryland Zoo has come in the last 150 years. Was there any talk about not doing that or taking that down? Or why was that decision made to leave it up and show the contrast?
We've always been very cognizant of our long history here at the Maryland Zoo. And I think that we knew pretty much from the get-go that we did not want to deny that history and push it all back into the past. For myself, I like having that contrast because it creates such a great talking point, and it really gives us an opportunity to talk to guests about how far zoos have come from when they were really curiosities, places for people to come and see animals that they might never otherwise see. And we had single animals in small exhibits. It was treated much more like a museum collection. And over the years, that has changed and developed to the point where we have these wonderful habitats that give animals so much choice and control and the opportunity to display all of their natural behaviors. And I think that losing that opportunity would have been quite sad.
I agree. I think it's really cool. It's actually really funny. I love how things time out sometimes. So this person commented on one of my viral posts right now, and it was just one of the anti-zoo goobers that I put up with all the time. No facts, no just feelings. And I get it. You know, I talk about this a lot on here, but it's challenging because we actually come from the same place. A love of and compassion for animals. And it's just that there's misunderstandings, misinformation, and also a bunch of really bad zoos out there, you know, roadside zoos and stuff. So it is a nuanced conversation. But I got into this conversation with this person today, and I was trying to keep it educational and, you know, use my platform. And I was typing yet another response to him as I walked up to the new habitat. And I saw the old habitat, and I was like, I wished I could just teleport him here, and I did snap some photos, and I just want to be like, this is what you think exists. This is what exists. It is really cool to see that. I've often said Rossifari would not have existed, you know, X number of years ago. I don't quite know how many, but it wouldn't have. But now the work being done and the conservation work being done, it's just amazing. And I was in there. We went through the exhibit, and the pandas that you have are living good lives. They're very happy. They're very content. And so, yeah, that was cool to see.
I agree with you about the frustrations of having conversations with people who have such opposing ideas. What I find frustrating about it is not the opposing ideas. It's when those opposing ideas are grounded in misinformation. Yes. And lack of people educating themselves. If somebody has an opposing view, but they are knowledgeable and educated and willing to have a conversation, I really welcome those conversations. I enjoy being challenged, and I enjoy talking to people who bring up points that I may disagree with so that we can have a good conversation. I do find it very hard when you see all those comments on social media that are people just typing in the first thing that comes to their mind.
Yes.
And then they move on. And there is no exchange of ideas. There's no exchange of information.
Same. I engage with this a lot, both on different zoos pages if I see stuff, as well as on my own page. And I love having the conversations. And I've had successful conversations of like people have at least said, okay, I'm going to go check out my local AZA zoo, because you're right. I always go to this zoo, and, you know, I look it up and I'm like, oh, I wouldn't go to that zoo. And like, I've had good conversations like that. But yeah, you know, this one was one where 3 comments in, not only have no facts been shared by the person I was talking to, but he's calling me a douchebag. And I'm like, cool, we're not fighting. We're just talking, but okay. You know, that's when it gets tricky.
And with people who are knowledgeable and have opposing ideas, just as you said, they very often come from the same place that we do. Mm-hmm. They care about animal welfare, and they want to be sure that animals are having their needs met and having a good full life experience. And that's what we all want. As zookeepers, we would love a future where there is no need to have zoos, mm-hmm. and animals can all exist in the wild without threat from humans. That's not the reality that we live in, unfortunately. And our job as zookeepers is to talk about the animals that are in our care and get people to understand the need for conservation projects and conservation work.
Absolutely. And something I'm very passionate about as well. And I think one of the things that I find funny, I don't want to belabor this point too much, but the last thing I'll say about it is that I have memorized the top Google responses to why zoo's bad, typing in, right? And the number of people who will respond and be like, oh yeah, look at this. And it's just those top 3. And I just go, man, you don't even care about this. Like, you didn't educate yourself. You Googled and couldn't even be bothered to scroll. This is numbers 1, 2, and 3. And I know what they are now. And I have no problem calling people out on that. It's like, there are valid conversations, especially like I was talking to this dude about orcas. That's a fair conversation. I currently believe that like places like SeaWorld and stuff are doing the right thing, but I would not, if evidence came out, if there was more studies done and we find that maybe this isn't the best thing for them and the decision is made to move away from them, I wouldn't be shocked. I would be shocked if they ever said that about red pandas, right? Like, we know they do well in human care. But there are certain species where I think it is a discussion worth having, and I'm glad to have that discussion, if it's a discussion.
As modern zoos, those are the discussions we really should be having. We shouldn't do things just because it's what we've done in the past. We should be open to learning and to changing our viewpoints if there is data to support that.
Absolutely. It just needs to be actual data, peer-reviewed, and not just funded by PETA or whatever.
Preach it.
Yeah. So, but moving on from that, I could all day. But let's talk about, do you want to talk animals or habitat first? I'll give you the choice.
Let's talk habitat first.
Okay. You're gonna tease my listeners. I like it.
I am, yes, and talk about where this all started.
Yes, tell me everything. Just tell me.
I mentioned that we had a conversation a couple of years ago about the possibility of bringing red pandas here into an existing habitat. And we have a couple of people on our manager team who have worked with red pandas before and are very passionate about them. So they really started that conversation rolling. And it then became a more serious conversation about should we build a new habitat for these animals. And with the master planning and the revitalization of Main Valley, it was a great time to do that. All of those things just came together. And we started talking to our architect, had a lot of conversations about what an exhibit for red pandas would look like. And we are lucky in that there are a lot of AZA zoos who do very successfully hold the species. So there were so many examples that we could look at. We had this great site that we picked out that we felt would be really good for them. It's got that nice grade, so it gives them a high vantage point, and visitors can stand on the pathway and look up into the habitat. So once we had selected the site, we started playing around with ideas for what the habitat would look like and really understanding what are the features that we want in the habitat and what size habitat do we want to make sure that we can accommodate the needs of these animals. We would like to be able to breed in the future, so we did set ourselves up with the right features to do that. We do have the 2 yards, so we can manage pandas separately. And that has been helpful because right now we have 2 females who have not been introduced, but we have nice flexibility in those yards.
Again, I know I'm not a full expert here, but I don't think you can breed 2 females, especially if they haven't been introduced.
You know, there are a couple of things wrong with that plan. As you know from the work that you do, everything is done in collaboration with all our partner zoos within the AZA organization. And so we started very early on at the time that we were starting to design the habitat. We started talking to the SSP program leader, the Species Survival Plan program leader, and just letting the program leader know that we were looking at bringing pandas in and what our time frame was. And we did express interest in a breeding pair, but it has been a number of years since we've had red pandas here, and it's a new exhibit. So their preference was that we got in pandas that were not a breeding pair, got some experience in husbandry, got to know our new exhibit, and then in the future we can make that pivot and go to breeding. So then we will have a male and female, and I promise you they will be introduced.
Perfect. That makes
they will share space.
That makes sense. No, that is actually something I love about Sarah Glass, though, and Jessica Cordell, who are the lead and the stud bookkeeper of the SSP and both good friends of mine, is that they are very thoughtful about that kind of thing, but also they really must like you guys, because there are zoos that have to wait a long time to get pandas and get told, don't say that this is going to be a red panda habitat or you might be wrong for a while. And you guys just got some pandas.
Obviously, we were very passionate about bringing pandas in, but we also tried to be respectful of the fact that we are not the only zoo that is looking for pandas, and that there are a lot of holders for the species. So they have a complicated job with trying to fulfill everybody's needs. So we did try to be very respectful of that, let them know what we could do, and that we were able to hold animals that did not cohabit with each other. And again, we started that conversation early. I think that was the big thing, that it is so important to start having those conversations early on and not be months away from opening a new exhibit and suddenly say, hey, we need some of the species, because that's not going to make anybody happy.
No, and it happens.
It certainly does, yes. I have seen from the outside when that has happened before, and so we have learned from other people's misjudgments.
Oh, that's fun. But no, that is, I mean, it is, I say it laughingly, but also like it's true. You can tell that y'all put a lot of thought into it, a lot of effort into it, because they don't just send pandas if they're not ready. They don't think you're ready, rather, for, the pandas. So it seems like everything was really done really well here, which is unsurprising, but always nice to see,
We certainly tried, and we did talk to the SSP as well about our design and what we were looking at doing with the habitat. So we were able to get some input on them from different things like the features we should have, what mesh size we should have, lots of different input, and they were great with helping us out with that. And talking of features, we do have some things in the exhibit that I really love. I would say that the thing that I am appreciating the most now that the habitat is finished is the beautiful perching that we have in the yards.
Oh, it's so nice.
And I have to give a real shout out to our exhibits team and our behavior team who worked together on doing that. It all came together in the last few weeks while the main project was being completed. So it was complex. There were so many people on the site, and we had all these enormous branches and tree trunks that we had to move in and situate. And it was, I don't even know what the temperature was, but I can tell you it was not cool. It was one of those typical Baltimore summer days where it was really humid, really hot, and they were putting all of this perching into place. But it looks fantastic, and the pandas have made it all worthwhile because they are using every inch of those perching structures.
That's really awesome. And so you've talked a little bit about what you did for the pandas, but it's also a very guest focused. Like, obviously, animal welfare first, of course, but there's some really cool things for the guests there. So do you want to talk through a little bit of that thought process?
We tried to make a balance between giving the pandas space where they felt like they could get away from crowds, and that's where that terrain comes in really handy, because they can go up to the back of the exhibit where they are really well above the guests and they can feel secure back there. And we've tried to create some cover for them there as well, but with the hope that while they feel secure, guests can still view them from down below. We do have nice glass viewing windows as well, which is great for people who want to get photographs and gives you a little bit of a different look into the habitat. And the bottom of those viewing windows is at grade. So when the pandas are down on the ground and they come exploring up at the front, guests can really get eye to eye with them, which is fun. And we've already seen the pandas doing that. In fact, this
I experienced
morning
it.
we
Yes.
did.
Yes, that was incredible. Yeah.
It does give you such a good view, and I think people are really going to enjoy that. So people have a good view into the habitat with this balance of giving the animals their privacy. But we also talked a lot about those hot, humid summer days in Baltimore. We're in June, and already we're seeing temperatures where the heat index is 105 degrees. And we know that's going to continue for the next couple of months. Sorry, Baltimore.
Yeah.
But we also know that those temperatures, those conditions are not ideal for red pandas. That is not what they would prefer. And so what we've done is, in addition to making sure that the pandas have plenty of shade on exhibit, they do also have access into their building where their indoor dens are, and that building is air conditioned. You and I were in there this morning, and it is a nice, cool temperature. We've got it set at about 68 degrees.
I don't know if I liked the pandas or the air conditioning more, because it's already very hot and drippy today. I'm already gross.
You actually mentioned the air conditioning before you mentioned the pandas.
I did.
So I think there is your answer right there. And the keepers definitely appreciate the air conditioning as well. But we don't want them to spend all of their time indoors, even though we give them that choice. So on the habitat, we have created some cooling stations for them. Each of the yards has a cooling log and a tree stump that has air vents in it. So some of that air conditioning is being pumped into those features. The pandas haven't quite figured that out yet, but it's early days.
Sure.
And definitely we have seen with Aurora, the older female, that she makes good choices. She will go inside to cool off, but she enjoys being out on the habitat. So she will spend a little while indoors, and then she will come back outside and she will go exploring and climb all around the habitat. She does enjoy being on the ground as well. And so we do see her walking around on the ground a lot. The younger panda tends to spend more time inside and then have short periods of coming out to explore. But this is her first time being in a habitat where we have the public able to view her. So that is a bit of an adjustment period for her as well. And now I've already veered away from talking about the habitat to talking about the animals.
It happens. All right, so let's dive in. First of all, let's talk about Aurora. So the older of the two, but still young.
Six, going on 7.
Okay, cool. So still, yeah, not a baby, but
definitely
young.
Not a baby, but still very active.
Yeah.
And she's adjusted so well to the habitat.
And she came here from Cape May, where my buddy Amy took care of her for a little bit. And I know she was somewhere else before that. I can't remember where, but
she was, but please don't press me on that because I'm not going to remember either.
Yeah, even I don't, which is saying something because normally I do. But I know that Amy really loved her and was excited that she was moving close when she was moving, and already reached out today and asked for photos, which I will be providing to her. So tell me a little bit about Aurora.
We went out to Cape May to meet her before she came here. So we had a chance to talk to Amy, and Amy knows she has an open invitation to visit. When we met her, we wanted to understand a little bit about her behavior, how she was being managed in her habitat there, and learn a little bit about her preferences. So that gave us a good start for setting things up for her here. And we did know that she would probably adjust pretty well to this type of exhibit. She's been out in public view before, and she is a pretty laid-back individual. So we felt like she would be a really good fit. She was the one that we knew we were getting first. And so we started to prepare for that. And then a while later, we learned that we were going to get the second panda. So we had to start to prepare for her as well.
Very cool. And the second panda is?
The second panda does not have an official name at the moment. We are going to have a naming competition. I believe that just started, so the public is going to be able to help us choose a name for her. That will be announced on July the 2nd. We are all eagerly awaiting. It's very tough for the keepers when they have an animal that does not have an official name yet. So she is currently known by names such as Panda X, No Name, the panda yet to be named, and sometimes she's just called Baby Panda.
Yes.
And she is going to be turning a year old in about a week.
Mm-hmm.
So she is a much, much younger individual.
Yeah, and she came from the Smithsonian, the Front Royal campus.
Yes, that's right.
And I actually, about a year ago, they involved me in announcing her birth once that happened. Like, we actually announced the birth on the podcast. The Washington Post ran with it, all this. It was actually like a really cool moment for the podcast. But I was never actually able to see her there. So seeing her today was really nice because, like, baby girl had an impact on me, and now I got to see her, you know?
And you were quite taken with her when you saw her this morning.
How could you not be? Okay, that's the real question. All right, so on this podcast, we get a little more real with the details of the zoo world, right? And so I'm just going to ask, how much did you bribe Sarah Glass to send you 2 of the cutest pandas I've ever seen? And I've seen a lot of cute pandas, but it's ridiculous what's going on over there.
I am not going to disclose anything that was exchanged, any terms that were made. We will keep those behind closed doors.
Fair.
But really, you've seen a lot of pandas. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen a panda that you looked at and said, oh, that one's not so cute?
I have not. But with that said, I looked at these two and said, holy crap, those are two of the cutest pandas. I've met something, like behind the scenes met like 70 some pandas at this point in my life and seen well more than that. They both take your breath away. Like, they're really gorgeous.
They are like the prototype red panda.
Yeah.
So we have been a little bit spoiled because this is going to be our expectation going forward now. That could be a little bit tough in the future.
Yeah, you'll get one that's only a 9 and you'll be like, ew.
Exactly. No, actually on second thoughts, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, it won't.
And of course, being a redhead myself, this is part of my plan to take over the zoo with individuals that are all gingers. So we're starting with the red pandas.
I like it. That's fantastic. That was really good. So, you have these two pandas, and they have not met, but they're indoor holding. They can like see each other and stuff. Have there been any interactions, calls, anything like that? Do they seem nervous, excited, none of the above?
So far from what I have seen, the younger panda, Panda X, is the one who is the most intrigued. And they have had a chance to be hardied, where they are adjacent to each other with just mesh between them. And when we first did that, the younger panda was right up at that mesh and did not want to move away. Aurora seems less interested, less intrigued, but she, of course, has been introduced to different pandas during her life, so she knows the drill. And we will continue. We just started this yesterday, so there hasn't been a lot of interaction at the mesh because of Aurora's, I wouldn't say disinterest, but her casual attitude. We'll continue to give them that opportunity and to monitor them. And if we're seeing positive signs, if we're not seeing any signs of aggression, then we would like to give them the opportunity to share space and see how they do. If that doesn't happen and it turns out that they're not compatible, we have plenty of space to manage them individually. And what we will likely do in that case is give them the opportunity to switch enclosures and switch spaces periodically so that they will get a new space, new sense, a different view, something new to explore.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. So when I showed up, I saw the habitat on the left and what is currently Aurora's habitat. And I thought that was the whole thing. It's such a big setup. It is perched, like you said, absolutely beautifully. And I was already like, this is a fantastic habitat. And I was snapping photos and doing the thing. And I glanced to my right, and there's Panda X staring at me at the glass of the other yard. And I was like, whoa, it's huge. Like, it's really beautiful. And I was so impressed. I missed a panda for a minute, which is pretty impressive. So yeah, I think everyone really needs to come out and check this out. And I hope that as other places are diving into red pandas, that this is one of the habitats that they check out. It's great. And the indoor holding, it's not huge, but it is exactly what they need, exactly what the keepers need. And again, kept very comfortable, which is nice.
Yes, I think the air conditioning is going to be the thing everyone always mentions when they talk about the indoor holding. And our plan there was to create some flexibility. We have 3 dens, and they do open up to each other. And then we do have that chute you may have noticed on the outside of the building that connects dens 1 and 2 via an overhead. So we have some different options for moving animals around. And again, like you said, not a huge space, but perfectly adequate for our needs, which is really just to provide a cooling space for the animals. We don't see a situation where we would be keeping them inside. They should always have access to all of their spaces, unless perhaps we are servicing one area. And it gives the keepers a nice little hub that they can work out of. And these are the same keepers that work at the crane barn, which is adjacent and also has a nice keeper space. And they will also be taking care of the gibbons when that exhibit is built. So they didn't need a big space here. They didn't need anything fancy. They didn't get a restroom, unfortunately. They do have to go to the crane barn for that. But it's got a nice little prep area and place for them to move around and interact with the animals. Just what they need.
Yeah, it's almost every panda habitat that I've been to that is a standalone type of panda habitat is very similarly set up. You don't need a lot of space. they sploot when they're inside. Like if they're coming inside to get cool and lay down, or because they're not feeling something out in their yard. They're not in there to play and have a good time. Although with 3, if you had to, if there was some weird emergency, you could lock them in there and open up the 3 spaces, and they could have access and everything. And honestly, there would be a lot of room there. You'd have to perch it out. But that would, again, that's not the goal, but you could do it in there, which is cool to see. Like I clocked that immediately. I was just like, this is great. It really is. I have no criticisms about anything that I saw. It all looks fantastic. I think y'all nailed it, honestly.
That's great to hear. It's, as you know, it's only been open for a few days now, so getting an outside perspective, especially from somebody who is a little bit of a red panda fanatic,
a little bit,
is really great.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I not only go to a lot of red panda habitats, but I talk to a lot of keepers and stuff. And so I have learned what I'm looking for, and to see if, and you know, when I say something that's problematic, it could be as simple as something you need to fix, or a drain that's in the wrong, something like that, something small, whatever. But no, nothing. I normally will be like, oh, is that where you guys wanted that? Like off the record? And no. Trying to get that fixed. I didn't see anything though, so that's good.
Full disclosure, I will say, just like with any project, any new exhibit that you build, there are things that we looked at and we said, why did we do that? And we are, of course, going to do a debrief, and we will make a note of things that we could do a little differently next time, but they're all fairly minor things. For the overall build out of the exhibit, we are really, really happy with how it's turned out. And it still doesn't feel quite real to go out there and, after a year of construction and building and chaos, see 2 red pandas. It's fantastic.
It is. And it's so cool because this was like the zoo that I came to as a kid. And I loved it. And I didn't even love red pandas back there. I didn't even know about it. But to now have the place that I've been coming the most have my favorite species is really, really cool. And I remember, I want to say it was all the way back when I was here for the AZA conference a couple years ago now. Mm-hmm. Where somebody let drop that red pandas might be coming. And that was like almost 4 years ago now. And so I have been waiting for this. And then Mike told me about it quietly, maybe, I don't know, a year and a half ago, whenever, maybe even 2 years ago now. So I knew it was progressing, and I just had to quietly wait for it. And then the announcement came, and I became the happiest boy because I could finally talk about it. And now we're here.
Your patience has paid off.
Yes, it's so cool. And like my son, who loves red pandas, lives up in the Harrisburg area. So like we're an hour away from here, you know. So I guarantee you we're going to be back.
We love that. And of course, you know who to call if you're coming back and you want to get a peek at the red pandas.
I do indeed. Yes. So I could talk red pandas all day, but you seem like a fascinating person. And we are more than halfway through our interview now. So I'm going to pivot and just ask you about you. So you come from South Africa.
I do. I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa. That's where I was born.
And just like everyone else there, you had dreams of going to Baltimore, Maryland someday?
Like you say, doesn't everyone? I did not have any dreams of emigrating to another country, in particular not coming to the United States. That was not on my bingo card. And the story with that, which Kirby, my boss, does love to tell people, is that I was studying English and theory of literature. I had dreams of being an editor, perhaps something in that line of work. I came here with my husband, who is a materials scientist, and he got a postdoc at the National Institute of Standards and Technology down in Gaithersburg. Again, like I said, no plans to come to the United States, but this seemed like a fun adventure, and we were going to come out here for 18 months. And 18 months progressed. And somewhere along the way, we moved to Baltimore, and I got a volunteer job here. And I was one of those people who was very, very fortunate, right place, right time, had some wonderful people who mentored me and gave me opportunities. And it's not your usual zoo track career, but I was able to get a part-time position that became a full-time position and then a manager position And I worked for a number of years as assistant curator with Mike McClure. When he left a few years ago, I was given the opportunity to become general curator. Also, not something that was on my radar. I was very happy being assistant curator, and I really like the operations side of things, so that suited me well. But it seemed like too good an opportunity to turn down, and I have such a wonderful team that I work with that I really felt I owed it to them to try and continue the work that Mike had done and just make sure that there was consistency and stability for the rest of the team. So I said, what the heck, Kirby? I will do this and let's see how it goes. And I love what I'm doing. I really do.
That's awesome. Very cool. And Mike, by the way, I mean, what a star. I love that man. So
he is amazing. He was a fantastic mentor to me, and he left me with such a great department to work with. I don't see him as much as I would like to anymore because he is always jetting around the country working with other zoos, but he has made such a success of what he's doing that I can't resent him for it.
Yes. No, he's been a guest on the podcast, but also he's one of those people where I think we've been at 3 different zoos at the same time, me doing Rossifari and him doing McClure International elephant stuff. And we're like, hey. And so, yeah, I think it's been 3 times now that we've just bumped into each other, which is just the best.
It doesn't surprise me at all. It seems like every time I text him and say, hey, are you in town? Can we get together? He says, well, I am about to jump on a plane to go here, there, or everywhere.
Yeah, that sounds right. What a cool dude. And so when you jump into a position like that, and I know that you had done, even in terms of being the assistant curator, especially from such a weird background, did you deal with any imposter syndrome? Were you worried, or had you come up in such a way where you were confident?
I'm human. There was definitely imposter syndrome.
Fair.
The things that helped me, again, having gone through so much with Mike and having his mentorship, I think positioned me well. And I have a really terrific team of curators. And those taxon curators are the ones that I had to rely on very, very heavily because I don't have that breadth of knowledge that they have of the different taxa. Again, like I said, I'm good at the operation side and I have learned a lot along the way, but they are really the experts. And so I am looking to them to give me their input, their ideas, and we have a great dialogue. And I have worked together for a long time with those taxon curators, so we have a fantastic relationship. We don't always agree, but that is part of the beauty of that relationship.
Yeah, that's important.
Absolutely.
I actually think that's a really healthy thing. That's cool. What are some of the animals here that you are most fascinated by, in love with, whatever?
What else am I going to say right now except red pandas?
Fair.
It's been, I believe, over 25 years since we had them at the Maryland Zoo. So they're a new species for me. I have not worked with them before. I'm going to be learning a lot. And I'm really, really looking forward to that. But I also have to confess, when people ask me if I have a favorite species, it's a difficult question to answer because I came up working with animal ambassadors. For the first 10 years or so of my career, that's where I was. I was working in our animal embassy with those ambassadors. Got to do some pretty crazy and interesting things there. Trips to New York to make television appearances and taking the Raven mascots to the NFL stadium in downtown Baltimore.
BT Dubs, I am a big Ravens fan. So just so you know, I'm a big fan of that Rise and Conquer here.
Go Ravens. So I got to do all of those great things. And I've got so distracted by the Ravens that I've lost my track of,
Sorry.
of what were we even talking about other than football.
Your favorite animals.
My favorite animals, that's right. So because I worked with so many different ambassador species, it's hard for me to single out a specific animal and say, that's my favorite. But, I have to say we have 2 cooney pigs in the farmyard.
Yes.
And I do have a special place in my heart for them. The farmyard keepers know that if I'm having a not-so-great day, they might find me behind the stall with the door open, giving the pigs a scratch. and hanging out with them a little bit. So yeah, I do kind of love those Kuni pigs.
That's awesome. They're really cute.
They are
really cool.
fantastic. And you know, with our pigs, if you give them a little scratch on the side, they like to just flop over and grunt, just lie on the ground and grunt. And it's just very validating for me to be able to do that.
Nice.
But of course, there are so many other wonderful species. How do you pick one?
Right. Now, I love it, though, when people who get a lot of time with exotic animals say something like a barnyard animal as their favorite. It always cracks me up. So my wife, Zoe, she's a veterinarian, and she gets to come along on all these adventures with me, plus do her own adventures as a vet and all the things. But her favorite animals are dogs, by far. But her favorite zoo animals are goats. And I actually have this incredible video of her that I posted. It was when we were at AZA here. It was Zoo Day. And it's the end of the day, and we're so tired. And we're just, you know how those days go, right? And I'm talking to the barnyard keepers, and I'm trying to explain what Rossifari is. It was still a newer thing back then. And I'm like trying to do the thing. And I look over, and she's just sitting on the ground, surrounded by goats, petting them and loving on them, and they're loving on her. And I just turn my camera and I go, "What are you doing?" And she just bursts out giggling and goes, "I just really like goats, okay? I really like goats." And it is like, that is why I love her, right? Like right there. There's something about a woman who has been in Namibia working with cheetahs, just being blown away by the goats in the goat yard. That just, how do you not love that person? Right?
Well, now that you've told me that story, first of all, I think that I would really, really like Zoe, because I think that we would be like-minded. My dirty little secret is that, yes, of course, I love and respect all of the animals that we work with here at the zoo and feel a tremendous responsibility to them. And I do have my favorites, but I really am a dog person at heart. I am well known among my team for adopting ancient chihuahuas that have very few teeth and probably don't have very much longer in this world. And so over the years, my husband and I have adopted 15 or 16 old chihuahuas.
Oh my gosh.
And those are so near and dear to my heart.
That's amazing. So Zoe is the more dog person, but I also really love dogs. But I'm the small dog person. So in our family right now, we have 3 dogs. We have a black lab and a mini Aussie. And then we have my Chihuahua mutt mix rescue disaster of a dog who I love. And before that, we had Lexi, who is my long hair Chihuahua that I had for almost 15 years, was my best friend. And I will be looking at the cutest, best, most wonderful dogs in the world and see just a haggard old tiny dog and be like, "Come here, let me love you." So I am on your page with that one.
They are the best, those little hot messes.
Yep.
We have one right now, and now I'm just going completely off topic.
That's
but
right. That's
since
what
you
we do.
brought up chihuahuas,
It's just a conversation.
we have one right now who's about 18 years old. She has really bad arthritis, but is otherwise in pretty good health. And she is the spiciest little thing you could imagine. No teeth. And she has this arthritis, which means that she doesn't move very quickly. But God forbid you should try to snuggle her or give her a kiss. You will be bitten, or I should say gummed, because she does not want to be loved. She is a wild child. But my love of old chihuahuas does also relate to my love of zoo animals and the animals that we care for here, because I do feel a strong affinity and a special responsibility towards those older animals. It is an important part of what we do, caring for animals as they age and they go through their different life stages. And so I do feel that strong connection with some of our older animals. I love to go and visit with our oldest chimp, Joyce. And I feel like we're 2 old ladies who could just sit in the sunshine and have a really good conversation about all the things that we've seen.
I love that. I actually have a very similar thing when I'm at a facility and I find out that there's a super old animal or whatever. I always love to meet it or even just go see it, whatever. And it has led to, over the years, building these relationships with them only for them to die, and then for me to announce it on Zoo News and cry on my podcast time and again, and people have heard it. And this is such a compassion fatigue bringing industry to begin with. But then when you have a heart for old animals, blah, it is rough. But it's also so important, and it's so special. And to get to meet, I've met some of the oldest elephants and chimps and stuff like that in human care ever, and to see them and, like you said, see that wisdom and see it's just amazing. It really is breathtaking.
It's such a privilege for us as zookeepers to be able to care for animals as they age, and there is that downside to it, that it is very, very difficult. It is very emotionally taxing, but at the same time, you have to remind yourself that it is a privilege and that you are doing everything you can to give these animals the best life possible and a full life experience while you are caring for them. That is probably the thing that I find the most aggravating when I talk to people who have a negative opinion of zoos, and I just want to grab them by the shoulders and shake them. And I say, but you don't know the incredible people that I work with. You don't see how hard those people work and how they pour everything they have emotionally and physically into caring for these animals. And, they probably spend more time with some of the animals they care for than they do with their own families, because they are here at work every day. And when there is a crisis or something happens, they will be here and they will show up and they will do whatever is needed to take care of those animals. And that's why I love my team that I work with so much.
That's why I do what I do. It is cool to have fun and go to zoos and meet animals and stuff. And I didn't even realize, like, when I started this podcast, I didn't know that I was going to love almost every human I've met in this field and respect the heck out of them and all of the things that happened naturally along the way. But yeah, and it's funny that you tied it back into our earlier conversation, because as you were saying that, I was literally sitting here. There's a third chair here that is empty right now, wishing that the dude that I was talking to today could have just heard you say that, right? And he could still argue it. He could still whatever. But I just wish, one of my biggest problems with my podcast is that the people who need to listen to it will never listen to it. And I've accepted that. And I hope every once in a while someone might give it a shot. But, oh, dude, if he could have just heard that, like, you just can't argue that fact, and that's why I do what I do and why I keep telling these stories and stuff. When this all started, I never knew I'd get to, like, meet animals even and stuff like that. I never thought that was in the cards. I just wanted to share these stories, and the more stories I hear, the more I want to share them. My biggest problem with Rossifari is I feel like I don't do nearly enough, and I'm doing everything that I can. But I think, like, there should be a new episode every day with somebody in this industry featured telling the amazing stuff that they do, because everyone is amazing, I just know none of us have the bandwidth for that.
But you're at least getting those stories out there and giving them a platform, because maybe we don't reach somebody like the individual you were talking to earlier today, but perhaps there's somebody else who hears the podcast and perhaps it just piques their interest and they do look a little bit more into the reality of modern accredited zoos and understand what they're doing. And the more that we can get those stories out there, I do believe that we can make a difference and that we can really help to explain to people why zoos are important in our modern culture.
Definitely. Absolutely. And with that said, we are at the end here. So we have to do our last two questions. So is there a conservation organization that you would like to give a shout out to?
We have a group of organizations that we work very closely with and that we've worked with for a number of years. We're not quite at the point yet where we are getting involved in red panda conservation, but that's coming.
We're going to be talking about that.
Yes, yeah. That's why I threw that out there, because I know that you are going to be putting me on the spot when the microphone goes off.
Yes.
So I'm just saying in front of an audience, we're going to be getting involved in that. There are some wonderful organizations, but probably the one that I have the closest link to and that is special for me is SANCCOB, which is the South African National Conservation for South African National. I'm not going to get it.
It's such a weird acronym.
It is, and they've changed it recently. But it is the organization that conserves coastal and seabirds. and they are based about 15 minutes from where I grew up. I also, when I was much younger, living in Cape Town, would go to the beach with my family, and there would be penguins swimming in the sea beside us, bobbing around. You don't get to do as much of that anymore because a lot of that area has now been declared a national park area, and you have a boardwalk where you can walk along and see the animals. But if you know the right beaches, you can still do that. So Sandcob and the sister organization that started up recently, NAMCOB, which is based in Namibia, and which our zoo is very involved in, those two organizations are very near and dear to my heart.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Sandcob, and then just recently learned about NAMCOB, and I think it's really cool that has opened. And I'm going to point out also that this zoo is famous for helping out with the conservation of Panamanian golden frogs, which obviously you use your shout out for whatever you want. But that was the first time when I was coming here and I was grown up and I learned about that. That was the first time that I learned that zoos actually help save species and all that stuff. I was so lucky growing up because I would have gone to every roadside zoo if they were close because I wouldn't have known better, right? I'd have a tiger cub on my lap back then if I could have, of course. But I had the Maryland Zoo. I had the National Aquarium. I'm a lucky dude, you know, and it really, looking back, I'm sure that's what inspired all of that love. Seeing a sea turtle that had been rescued at the aquarium, seeing the golden frogs down there and reading about what's happening here, it's mind-blowing. So I always like to talk. I know there are a lot of places that do Panamanian golden frog work, and I've even had the organization down in Panama on the podcast talking about it. But to me, the Maryland Zoo, like, I owe y'all because, like, that work changed my life, you know?
Well, this is the one way that you can probably make me a little teary-eyed, and let me tell you, that is a tough thing to do when we talk about the Panamanian golden frogs and the work that is being done to reintroduce this extinct species, or extinct in the wild species, back into its natural habitat in Panama. That is unbelievable to me that we are at the stage. I started working here just as we were starting up our involvement with Project Golden Frog.
Nice.
And to be here as general curator all this time later as we are talking about returning these frogs to Panama just really hits me in the feels. It's amazing. It's an incredible thing. And I remember reading quite some time ago an article that was somewhat anti-zoo, and they were talking about the fact that zoos position themselves as organizations that can save species. And they were very dismissive of that and said, you really can't point to any projects that have been successful. And now what I realize is that's just not true.
Right.
There are many good examples, but for me, the Panamanian golden frog is one that emotionally just hits me hard. And we are at the point now where we are working on getting those permits to take those animals back to Panama. Amazing.
Just incredible. Just incredible. And yeah, I mean, I was like in high school when I learned about it, and I'm not in high school anymore. It takes time, but it's happening. And that is one of my favorites too. I always, whenever I see those animals, they're not anywhere near my favorite to look at, but I get emotional, especially here when I see that habitat. I just, just gets you, you know?
It's also a really wonderful example of how zoos have learned from the past, and we've pivoted away, zoos and aquariums, we have pivoted away from the model where we feel like we, as the wealthy first world country, will step in and save a species. And now what we do is we find partner organizations where we can provide support and we can help those in-country organizations do this work, and it can be a true partnership, and that's really, really important.
Yeah, that's something I love about the SAFE programs I'm involved with, is, you know, connecting with the people in Nepal, in Papua New Guinea, already connecting with people in the Philippines for bintrongs, even though the SAFE hasn't been approved yet. I've talked about it on the pod already, that we're working on it, you know. it's such a different thing than that. Like, yeah, we're going to come in and we're going to fix your animal problem, boy. Like, yeah, it's so much better. And it's been really cool to learn that. And actually, I think the first, I'd have to go back and check, but I think the first people that I spoke to in like a foreign country actually doing the work were Project Golden Frog, because that was very early on. And I remember I've done 600 and some episodes of this podcast, and I don't remember all of them, obviously. But one of the deep memories is sitting, I remember exactly where I was on the couch, my setup that I had at the time. It was in Ardmore, Pennsylvania, when I was having this conversation. And I'm talking to somebody in Panama, and they're trying to save the species of frogs. And like, everything is hard. And it's challenged. And how is this a thing? You know, I will never forget that moment. It's very cool. Yeah.
And here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, gotta love it. Awesome. Well, now to completely ruin the mood.
It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
You warned me when we met this morning that you were going to ask me this question, and I had to scratch my head a little bit, but I know exactly what the story is that I want to share. It's not going to be something that really grosses people out, but for me, it's one of the least favorite things that I've had to do as a zookeeper. About 5 years ago, we were asked to take in a young chimpanzee that had been abandoned by its mother. And we were asked because at the time we had a chimpanzee here who was a known foster mom. And so we got this young chimpanzee. She was very small at the time, and she was not big enough or strong enough to go in with the troop and meet her foster mom yet. So we had to hand raise her for quite a few months before we could do those introductions. And our wonderful team of chimp keepers worked around the clock. She had somebody with her 24 hours a day, teaching her how to be a chimp. But because she was so young and we were hand raising her, she did have to wear a diaper. And there were times when I was doing the overnight shift and I had to change those diapers. And I don't have kids, never wanted kids. And that is going to be my one and only experience of changing diapers. And I am absolutely fine with that. I don't want to wipe little primate butts ever again. Done it. I can say I've had the experience, and we're moving on.
Very fair. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time. This has been lovely.
I've really enjoyed our talk, and thank you so much, and thank you for what you do.
All right, so Margaret is officially on the list of people that I want to have back on the podcast because, I mean, I could have just had that conversation going all day, right? Like that was so cool. And as great as it was to talk about pandas, I now want to go back and just talk about like all the animals at the zoo. Like let's just do regular interviews with Margaret and learn about the different animals at the Maryland Zoo, because that is a really, really cool human being. And, you know, it led to me reaching out to Mike McClure, who I haven't talked to for a minute. And it was great to catch up with him. And I sent pictures to Amy at Cape May and to Jess and Ellie at Smithsonian to get to see the pandas that they took care of that are now living here. And I love the community that this podcast fosters and creates and makes just all the time. It's just amazing. What an incredible group of humans I get to be a small part of just by sharing these stories. I am a lucky dude. And one of the things, by the way, that makes me so lucky is that, you know, I have patrons and they support the podcast. And in particular, I have a group that are the highest paying patrons. They're known as my Red Panda level patrons. And they include Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who's also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin. Meow. And I am very grateful very grateful to all of them and to all of my other patrons as well. I just don't have to say their names at the end of every episode. So if you could consider supporting the pod, it would really be helpful as I continue to try to do more and more traveling and get to more of these habitats and get to share more of this with you all directly. And yeah, we'll be back on Friday with a new episode of Zoo News. And until then, remember, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk.
The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.